Math question number 1. The parallelogram below has consecutive angles with the measures of x and 25 degrees. What is the value for x? You may want to recall in our geometry class that consecutive angles of a parallelogram are supplementary. So that means x plus 25 degrees is equal to 180 degrees. We subtract 25 from both sides, and we get x is equal to 155 degrees. Answer is E. Question 2. A retail sales associate's daily commission during the 1 week was $30 on Monday and on Tuesday, and $70 on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. What was the associate's average daily commission for these 5 days? So we need to find the total amount of money the sales associate earned. So it's going to be 2 times 30 for Monday and Tuesday, and 3 times 70 for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Divide that all by 5, and we get an average of $54 per day. The answer is H. Question number 3. What is the greatest common factor of 45, 50, and 84? There are 2 approaches for this question. The first one is using the answers provided. 0 is not a factor of any of these numbers. 1 does go into each of these numbers. 2 does not go into 45. 3 does not go into 50. And 5 does not go into 84. So the answer is B. If you wanted to show all the factors, you can look at the prime factorization for each of these numbers. So 45 is 3 squared times 5. 50 is 2 times 5 squared. And 84 is 2 squared times 3 times 7. And looking at the prime factorization, we see that they don't share any prime factors. So again, our answer is B. Question 4. For what value of x is the equation 2 times x minus 12 plus x is equal to 36 true? So I'm going to distribute the 2 to both of these terms and get 2x minus 24 plus x is equal to 36. I'm going to combine like terms. So 2x plus x is going to make 3x. And then I'm going to add the 24 over here. So it's going to be a total of 60 on the right-hand side. Divide both sides by 3, and we get x is equal to 20. The answer is J. Question 5. A bag contains exactly 22 solid colored buttons, 4 that are red, 6 that are blue, and 12 that are white. What is the probability of randomly selecting one button that is not white? There are 2 approaches for this question. The first approach is counting the colors that are not white. Those would be the red and the blue. So it would be 4 red out of 22 plus 6 blue out of 22 for a grand total of 10 out of 22, which gives us the answer A. Alternatively, you could use the complement rule, which is the probability of not white is equal to 1 minus the probability that it is white. So we would get 1 minus the number of white out of 22, and that leaves us with 10 out of 22. Question number 6. On a map, 1/2 inch represents 12 actual miles. 2 towns that are 5-inch parts on the map are how many actual miles apart? So this is going to be a standard proportion. So we have 1/2 inches to 12 miles, and that has to compare to 5 inches and X number of miles. So the best way to go about this is using a proportion. 1/2 over 5 is equal to 12 over X. We're going to cross multiply it and get 1/2 X is equal to 60, and X is equal to 120 miles. Answer is F. Question number 7. Caden had exactly 45 plants to sell. After day 1 of his sale, he had exactly 42 plants left. So that tells me that 3 were sold. After day 2, Caden had exactly 39 plants left, and another 3 are sold. After day 3, he had exactly 36 plants, which is another 3 are sold. So this sounds like a linear model to me. After day 3, assuming Caden will continue to sell plants at the daily rate, so that sounds like 3, how many of these plants will he have left at the end of day 6? So we can make a linear model with this. Our initial number of plants is 45. So we're going to start with 45, and each day we lose or sell 3 plants. So if I want day 6, I'm going to plug in 6 for D. And that gives me 45 minus 18, which should be 27B. Alternatively, you could just continue the trend. You could do plants and days here. And on day 0, he had 45. On day 1, he had 42. Day 2. So again, we can keep building it out until we get to day 6. So we subtract 3, so that's 39, 36, 33, 30, and 27. So both of these methods will work. Question number 8. An on-demand movie service charges $5 per month, plus $2 for each movie rented. Which of the following equation models the relationship between M, the number of movies rented per month, and T, the total monthly cost in dollars for the service? So usually when you see the word for each, that is a rate, or if you see the word per, it's a rate. But since this is for a monthly cost, we can ignore the per monthly part. We do need to pay attention to the for each movie rented though. So the total amount of monthly cost is going to equal the initial cost of $5, plus we're going to add $2 for every month after that. So initial cost of $5 plus 2 times every movie after that. Looking at my equations, I'm going to pick H as my answer. Question number 9. What are the solutions to the quadratic equation 2x plus 5 times 3x minus 4 equal to 0? Since this quadratic function is already set to equal, we can go straight to solving for the factors. So I'm going to write 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. And that will give me x is equal to negative 5 over 2. But that leaves either b or c, so I need to find the other factor, the other 0 as well. 3x minus 4 is set equal to 0. X is equal to 4 over 3. And that leaves me with only answer choice C as my correct answer. Question number 10. An 8-inch by 6-inch rectangle is cut along a diagonal to form 2 triangles. What is the area in square inches of each triangle? So we can draw a rectangle. And I'm going to write this is 6 and this is 8. And we are going to cut along the diagonal, which is going to go across here. So right away, I can see that these triangles are identical. And that means that the area of one of the triangles is going to be half of the area of the rectangle. So 1/2, 6 times 8 is equal to 24. So my answer is J. Question number 11. In a class of 10th graders, no student participated in more than one of the following extracurricular activities. So 2/3 of the class played in the band, 1/6 played in the chorus, 1/10 played in football, 1/60 played in basketball. What fraction of the class did not participate in any one of these 4 activities? So in order to find this answer, I'm going to add up the different sections and then subtract it from 1. So 1 minus 2/3 for the people in the band, minus 1/6 for the people in the chorus, 1/10 for the people who played football, and 1/60 for the people who played basketball. And that will give us a grand total of 1 over 20. So 1 over 20 is the fraction of the class that did not participate in any one of these 4 activities. Answer is C. Question number 12. What is the smallest integer greater than the square root of 61? There are 2 ways to approach this question. First, you can just plug the square root of 61 into your calculator, and you get the square root of 61 is about 7.81, so we're going to pick the integer greater than that, which is h. Alternatively, you could recall that the square root of 61 is less than the square root of 64. The square root of 64 is 8, so therefore that is the smallest integer greater than square root of 61. Question number 13. In triangle ABC shown below, the sine of C is 2/3, and the length of AB is 6. So there's my angle C. What is the length of AC? Well, I remember that sine is opposite over hypotenuse from SOHCAHTOA. So the sine of C will equal 6 over AC, but they also told us already equal to 2/3. So from here, I can quickly see that AC is going to be equal to 9. And that is answer choice E. Alternatively, you could see that AC is the hypotenuse, so it must be greater than 6. So it cannot be A, B, C, or D, and that could be a quick shortcut for getting the answer. Question number 14. The table below shows the first 5 terms of an arithmetic sequence, so we're going to be adding or subtracting by the same amount each time. Which of the following is a general expression for the nth term? So as I go up by 1 each time on the left, I can see them going up by 4. So that is my common difference or slope. The formula for an arithmetic sequence is a sub n, a1 plus d times n minus 1. So our common difference is 4, so that would be a 4 here. And we have n minus 1, and then the first term is 1. And so this will give me my general formula. Looking at the answers, I have to simplify it a little bit further. 1 plus 4n minus 4, and that gives me 4n minus 3. The answer is H. Question number 15. What is the perimeter in feet of the figure shown below? So we're trying to find the perimeter of all sides, but there are 2 sides that are missing here. And you may have missed this one, or both of them. So let's add up the sides. If this whole length is 20 and this length is 8, then this piece right here is 12. And on this side it's 14, but the total length is 20, so that means that this little side is 6. Alternatively, you can see that it's going to be 20 on the left, 20 on the right, 20 on the top, and 20 on the bottom. So the perimeter is going to equal 4 times 20, which is going to equal a total of 80. Answer is D. Question number 16. Manuel estimates that 2/3 of a pizza is left. Stephen estimates that 3/4 of the pizza is left. They're going to compromise for a joint estimate by using the number halfway between these 2 estimates. So halfway means I'm going to take the average of these 2 fractions. 2/3 plus 3/4 divided by 2. And we can use our calculator to find this out, or we can do some fraction addition. So 4 times 2 is 8, 3 times 3 is 9, over 12 divided by 2. When I divide by a number, I can also multiply by the reciprocal. So multiply by 1/2, and that leaves me with 17 over 24, which is answer is F. So far, this question 17. So far this basketball season, Sharita has made 46 of her first 60 free throws, giving her free throw average of 76.7%. That's pretty awesome. What is the minimum number of free throws she would need to make from now on in order to have a free throw average of at least 80%? So that means 80% of all of the answers, of all the free throws, have to equal the number of free throws she's made right now, plus some extra. So let's start setting that up. I'm going to do 0.80 times the total number of free throws. So she's already done 60, but she's going to do some more. And then this is going to equal 46, because she's already made 46 free throws, plus the new ones that she makes. I'm going to multiply this out, and I get 48 plus 0.8x is equal to 46 plus x. Combine like terms, and I'm left with 0.2x is equal to 48 minus 46, which is 2. Dividing both sides by 2 gives me x is equal to 10, which is answer C. Another way of solving this problem is to make it into an average. So the problem with making it into an average is that you might get stuck on this last part of the 80%. Let's start setting it up. She's already made 46, but she's going to make some more shots. Her total number of shots will be 60 plus x, and then this will equal not 80, but 0.8, because we have to make the percent into a decimal. And then we multiply both sides by 60 plus x and start solving it. And you can see that this eventually leads down to the work we have below. So both will work. Question number 18. Two functions are defined as f of x is equal to 2x minus 1 and g of x is equal to x squared plus 1. Which of the following expression represents f of g of x? This is called composition of functions, so we put one function into the other. So I'm going to write f and replace the g of x with x squared plus 1. And that means wherever I see an x in the f equation, I need to plug in x squared plus 1. So it's going to be 2 parentheses x squared plus 1. And then we don't plug anything here for the 1 because there's no x there. Now it looks like I have to simplify. I get 2x squared plus 2 minus 1, or 2x squared plus 1 is my answer, which will mean our answer is G. Question number 19. Dataset A consists of 8 numbers listed below. So this is right, dataset A. Dataset B consists of the same 8 numbers in A and a ninth number which is greater than 90. So it could be 91, 92, 93, it could be a million. We don't know what number it is. How will the mean and median of B compare to the mean and median of A? Well, let's find the median of A first. Because these numbers are already arranged in increasing order, we can find the median by taking the average of the two middle terms. So it'll be 80 plus 82 divided by 2, or 81. For the B, if our new number was 1,000, well, that will shift the median over to the fifth term. So the median of B will be just straight up 82, because now will be the middle term. So looking at the answer choices, I know that the median of B will be greater than the median of A, so A makes sense. B we can cross off. C we can cross off. D, it could be true. And E we can cross off. So let's look at the mean. Well, we could actually calculate the average, or you can suppose that adding a very, very, very large number will make the mean of B be greater than the mean of A. So in that case, it means our final answer is A. Question number 20. A truck traveling at 35 miles per hour has a leaky radiator that is losing 4 fluid ounces per minute. How many miles will the truck travel before the radiator, which held 480 fluid ounces when it began to leak, is empty? All right, so that means we're going to have to make some linear models. So we know we started with 480 ounces, but we're losing 4 fluid ounces per minute. And we want to know when it goes to empty, which means it means none left, or 0. From here, I get M is 120, but that is the number of minutes, so it's not K. Well, in order to get the number of miles, we need to convert our minutes into hours. So I recall that 120 minutes is going to be 2 hours. And that's because 1 hour is every 60 minutes. Well, we then have to take the 2 hours and multiply it by the 35 miles per hour. So 35 miles per hour times the 2 hours will give me a total of 70 miles. And hopefully that radiator gets fixed. Answer is J. Question number 21. In the standard xy coordinate plane, what is the midpoint of the line segment that has the endpoints of -5, 8 and 3, -1? So the midpoint is like the average of 2 points. So I'm going to add up the x's. So x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2 is our midpoint formula. And it's going to be a point, so there's an x and a y. So let's plug it in. -5 plus 3 over 2, and 8 plus -1 over 2. The left side is going to give me -1, and the right side is going to be 7/2. And that means my final answer is B. Question number 22. The ordered pairs x and y in one of the following tables belongs to a linear function. Which one? So in order for it to be a linear function, it must have a constant rate of change. So let's go through them. For this one, as it goes up by 1, I notice it goes down by 1, then up by 1. That's not a constant rate of change because it changed. So for G, it goes up by 1 for x. And look at the y's, it goes down by 1 and then goes down by 0. So it's not G either. H, it goes up by 1, and we can see it goes down by 1 constantly. So the correct answer is H. However, we could check the other two to make sure. This is up by 1, and this went up by 1, down by 1, so not constant. And this one went up by 1, and it went up by 1, up by 3. So this one's actually a quadratic model, not a linear model. But still, we can cross it off. In triangle ABC shown below, measure of angle A is x, which we can see here. We have measure of angle B, which is 2x, and measure of angle C, which is 3x. AB is C, and AC is B, and BC is A. Which of the following inequalities represents the side lengths of triangle ABC? Well, it's important to remember that the opposite side of an angle is related to the sides. So the larger the angle, the larger the opposite side. So because x is a positive number, because we can't have negative angles in a triangle, I know that measure of angle C is greater than measure of angle B, which is greater than measure of angle A. From here, we can say that C, which is opposite of angle C, is greater than B, which is greater than A. So that leaves me with answer choice A. So always look out for your inequality signs because E here looks very tempting, except the inequality signs are switched. Question number 24. What is the slope of the line that passes through the point 1, 5 and 17/7? So slope is a classic formula from your Algebra 1 class. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It doesn't matter which one you set to be y2 or y1, just be consistent. So I'm going to do 7 minus 5 over 17 minus 1. So again, 7 was from this y value minus this y value, and 17 was this x value minus that x value. That gives me a grand total of 2 over 16, which is 1/8. The answer is F. Question number 25. The perimeter of a particular rectangle is 36 inches. So I know with a rectangle, there's usually a length and a width. The longer sides of the rectangle are each 2 centimeters longer than each of the shorter sides. So that means that the length is going to be 2 plus the width. What is the length in centimeters of one of the longer sides? So if we solve for the width, that means at the end of it, we have to add 2 to our final answer. So let's go through it. Perimeter is adding up all the sides. So 36 is equal to 2L plus 2W. But we're going to make it all in terms of W. So 36 is equal to 2 times 2 plus W plus 2W, which is going to be 4 plus 4W. Solving for W, we get a grand total of 8. But again, it said what is the longer side? So we have to add 2 to that. So then L would equal 10, and our answer is C, not A. Question number 26. The resort collected a total of $6,000 in ticket sales on Monday. The price of adult ticket is $50, and the price of a student ticket is each $25. How many adults and student tickets were sold on Monday? So I'm going to make an equation where 50 times the number of adults plus 25 times the number of students is equal to $6,000. However, we need more information. So if we look at the information provided above, it tells us that on Monday, they sold 200 tickets, one to each skier, and they were either sold to adults or students. So we can say that A plus S is equal to 200. Now from here, there's a couple different ways of solving it. You can use your graphing calculator to solve it. You could combine You can multiply the bottom equation by -50. You can also divide the top equation by a number to make the number smaller. So I think the fastest option that I did was I used my calculator to solve it. But just to show you that it would work by doing it by hand, I'm going to divide the top equation by 25. So that gives me 2a plus 1s is equal to 6,000 divided by 25. So you can use your calculator for that, but I know it's going to be 240. And we can subtract the s's now. So that means that 2a minus 1a is 1a. We would get 0 students, and we get 40 as our number of adult tickets. So the answer is F. Question number 27. On Monday, the result sold 1 ticket to each of the 8 members of the Herzog family. Assuming this family is representative sample of all skiers at the resort, so that means that we can apply the values in the equation, right? Apply the values of the sample to the equation. How many of the 8 members of the Herzog family are not first-time skiers? So if you go back up to here, it said that of the 200 tickets, 25 were sold to first-time skiers. So we can use that to our advantage. 25 out of 200 is from the sample, and we want to apply it to the Herzog family. So then we can do x over 8. Now this will tell me the number of first-time skiers in the Herzog family, which is going to equal 1. But since the question said not first-time skiers, we will then do 8 minus 1 and get 7. So the answer is E. Alternatively, you could have done, instead of 25 are first-time skiers, you could have said 175 are not first-time skiers. So in that case, you get 175 over 200 is equal to y over 8. And this time y would equal 7, which would also be the correct answer. Question number 28. What is Elisa's elevation in feet at the start of the main run? If you go back to the information provided, we have an equation that E is equal to 300,000 t plus 100, where t is the number of seconds after she begins skiing. So since we're looking at the start, t would equal 0. So that means we get E is equal to 300,000 and 0 plus 100. And then I get that is 3,000 feet. Some other things that are kind of interesting is 30,000 feet is the height that airplanes are at, and 300,000 feet is outer space. So these answers might seem true if you divide it incorrectly with your zeros, but a lot of times the questions do usually make sense in context of real life. Question number 29. One side of a square of ABCD has a length of 18 meters. I'm going to draw a square. A certain rectangle whose area is equal to the area of the square has a width of 6 meters. Well, I know that the area of a square is 18 squared, so it's 18 times 18. But we're going to set that equal to the area of a rectangle, which is length times width. In this case, 6 times the length. And what is the length? So that's what we're solving for. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6. And you might have accidentally divided both numbers by 6, but you only want to divide one of them. So 18 divided by 6 leaves 3. So that means the length is equal to 54. And the answer is E. Question number 30. The 2 by 2 matrices A and B are below related to the matrix C by the equation C is equal to 2A minus 3B. What is matrix C? Well, in order to do this properly, I'm going to set this up as C is equal to 2 times the matrix 3, 5, negative 2, 1, minus 3b, negative 4, 5, 2, 1. So I'm going to distribute the 2 into every term and negative 3 into every term. So this will become 6, 10, negative 4, 2. And then I'm going to write a plus sign here, because I'm going to distribute the negative inside. So negative 3 times negative 4 is 12. Negative 3 times 5 is 15. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Now I need to add these terms together. So 6 plus 12 is 18. 10 plus 15 is 25. Negative 4 plus negative 6 is negative 10. 2 plus negative 3 is negative 1. Looking at my answer choices, I see that there's only a single one that has the answer choice of 18, the first element. So this is a good reminder. Whenever you're adding or multiplying matrices, you may want to look to see if there's one spot where the matrices are all different, because that can speed up your process. So if we notice here, the first element is different for all of the matrices. So I could have quickly done 2 times 3 minus 3 times negative 4 and gotten 18. And since I did the first element, I could go straight to answer choice F. Question 31. Jen is doing an experiment to determine whether a high protein food affects the ability of white mice to find their way through a maze. The mice in the experimental group were given a high protein food. The mice in the control group were given regular food. Jen then timed the mice as they found their way through the maze, and the table below shows the results. The average time the mice in the experiment group took to find their way through the maze was how many seconds less than the average time it took the mouse in the control group. So this is a interesting question. So we need to find the average amount of time, but they give us in terms of minutes and seconds. So there are some traps along the way here. So let's find an easy way of doing this. So let's find out how many more seconds it took the control group did. So in order to get up to 2 minutes, it'd be 14 seconds plus another 13 seconds. So that's 27 seconds for mouse 1. For mouse 2, they took a little bit longer in the experimental group. So it's going to be 11 seconds minus 2. So it's going to be minus 13 seconds. Next one, it went up 8 seconds in terms of control group. This one's going to be 9 to get up to 2 minutes plus another 7. So it's going to be 16 seconds. And then 41 to 58 is 17 seconds. So we're going to add them all up. And since it's average time, we're going to then divide by 5. So let's write it out a little bit more neatly. Plus 8 plus 16 plus 17 divided by 5. And so we've got 33 plus 27 is 60. And then we have 60 minus 5, which is going to be 55 over 5, which is equal to 11 seconds. So that is one way of doing it. Alternatively, you could convert all the minutes into seconds. So for example, that would be 106 seconds or 122 seconds. And then after doing all the calculations, you could find the total time in seconds minus the total time in seconds and divide by 5. Question number 32. In the United States, phone numbers begin with a 3-digit area code. Now, there are restrictions on some of the digits, but in the future, as more and more area codes are needed, the restrictions may need to be lifted. If and when there are no restrictions and each of the 3 digits can be any integer from 0 through 9, how many area codes will be possible? So that means for the first digit, we have 10 integers possible. For the second digit, we still have another 10 that are possible because any integer is allowed. And then as you might guess, there are 10 digits available for the third spot. So that means the answer is going to be 1,000 different possibilities, or K. However, if the question said we could not repeat integers, or it had to be a distinct integer, then for the first spot, it'd be 10, and then it'd be 9 for the second spot, and then 8 for the third spot. So this is, again, cannot be repeated. So we know the answer is 1,000 in this case because any digit is allowed, but it's good to remember that when you read these questions, they will either tell you that the integers can be repeated or cannot be repeated. You want to pay close attention to that. Question number 33. The function y is equal to 2 sine of 8 pi x is graphed on the standard xy plane below. That's very convenient of the ACT to do that for us. How many x-intercepts, so how many times does it hit the x-axis, does the graph have on the interval from 0 to 1, but it's open? So you may notice that there's these open circles on the ends, so that it does not hit the x-axis. There, it gets very, very close. So the actual number of x-intercepts is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's why the answer was C and not 8 or 9. Question number 34. If both x and x over 3 plus x over 7 plus x over 9 are positive integers, what is the least possible value for x? Well, in order for this to be an integer, that means that it has to be divisible by 3, 7, or 9. Well, let's look at f. F is not divisible by 9, so we can cross it off. 27 is divisible by 9, but not divisible by 7. 36 is divisible by 3 and 9, but not 7. 63 is divisible by all of them, so that is a correct answer, and we want the smallest possible value for x. Another way of interpreting this question is find the LCM of 3, 7, and 9. And you can use your graphing calculator to do that. However, if you want to do it by hand, you take the greatest number of each prime factor. So yes, there's 1 3 here, but there are 2 3s here. So I'm going to take these 2 3s, and there's 1 7. So then multiply them all together. So 3 times 7, and that also gives us 63. The answer is J. Question number 35. What is a measure of angle BAD, or BAD? So angle BAD or BAD is this whole angle right there, and that's part of a parallelogram. And you may recall from question number 1 of this test that the consecutive angles of a parallelogram are supplementary. So if I add angle BAD with angle ADC, that should add to 180. Let's give it a shot. Plus angle ADC equal to 180. So we don't know this one, but this is going to be 71 plus 42, which is 113 is equal to 180. And then if we subtract 113 from 180, we should get 67. And 67 is the correct answer. Question number 36. Given that DC is 1/3 of an n plus 7 inches, what is the value for n? Well, looking above, I can see that DC is opposite of AB. So that's 1/3 n plus 7. And you may want to recall that the opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. So we can set these two sides equal to each other. So it's going to be 2/3 n minus 5 is equal to 1/3 n plus 7. Again, you can use your graphing calculator to solve this, but if you want to do it by hand, we can subtract 1/3 n from both sides and get 1/3 n. And we could add the 5 to the other side, making it equal to 12. Multiplying both sides by 3 gives us n is equal to 36, and that is why K is our answer. Question number 37. Suppose A and Z are located at 2, 10, and 33 in the xy coordinate plane. What are the coordinates for E? Well, looking at E is right in the middle of where the diagonals intersect. So the diagonals will always bisect each other for a parallelogram, meaning that E is going to be the midpoint. And you may recall that we did midpoint earlier in this test. So I'm going to jump straight into it. We're going to do the average of the 2 points. So the sum of the x's is going to be 2 plus 30 over 2. And the sums of the y will be 10 plus 3 over 2. And we can quickly find that the x value is 16 and the y value is 13 over 2. And that's why it was the answer choice E. Question 38. Which of the following triangles is congruent to triangle ABE? So if we scroll back up to here, we have triangle ABE right here. And so in order to show that two triangles are congruent, we need to use some of our theorems, such as side, 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 angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side. Well, I know that we said earlier that the diagonals bisect each other in a parallelogram. So that means that this side, BE, is congruent to DE. And that means that AE is congruent to EC. Because these two angles here are vertical angles or opposite angles, we can say that triangle ABE is congruent to triangle CED by the side angle side theorem. So looking at our choices, we are going to pick answer choice E. Question 39. Which of the following expressions is equal to a plus the square root of b times a minus 2 square root of b for all positive numbers for a and b? So you could plug in numbers here for A and B, but this looks like foiling to me, so I'm going to FOIL it out. So let's write it out a little bit. All right, so we get A times A, which is A squared, A times -2, so giving -2A root B times A, which will be plus A root B, and then root B times -2 root B, which will give us -2B. And these two are like terms, so we can simplify that down into just minus A root B minus 2B. Looking at the answer choices, we have answer choice B right here. Question number 40. The track for model railroad displays have two circles that are tangent to one another and have diameters of 30 feet and 50 feet, as we can see below. The engine of the train travels at a constant rate of 35 feet per minute. So far the units are the same. To the nearest minute, how many minutes does the engine take to go in a figure 8 pattern around the entire track exactly one time? So in order for this to happen, it has to go around like that, and then it's going to continue going all the way up and back. So the distance required to go in a figure 8 pattern is going to be the circumference of the small circle plus the circumference of the big circle. So circumference is 2 pi r, or pi times diameter. So the total distance traveled will be 30 pi plus 50 pi, for a grand total of 80 pi. Now we do have speed given. So I know that distance over time is equal to speed, but because I'm looking for time, I'm going to use the formula distance over speed is equal to time. So that will be 80 pi over 75 feet per minute. So I plug this in my calculator and I get approximately 3.35 minutes. So this is where it's a little bit of a challenge whether or not the answer should be H or J. So let's go back and read the question. To the nearest minute, how many minutes does the engine take to go in a figure 8 pattern around the track exactly one time? So if the question said at least one time, or it must go around one time, I would pick the answer J because it needs at least 3.35 minutes to make it all the way around. But because it's 3.35 minutes and we're rounding to the nearest minute, we can round this down to 3 minutes. And that's why the answer was H. Question number 41. This looks like a good use of exponent rules as well as negative. So the first thing I'm going to do is take care of the negative exponent. And that means it's going to flip the fraction side. So that will become 5 over 4 to the 3 halves. Now, going ahead, it looks like I need to convert this back into radicals. And so since I'm dividing by 2, that means it's going to become a square root. And it's going to be 5 cubed over 4 cubed. So I know because it's 5 cubed that 1 5 will come out. And looking at it here, I can say that 1 4 comes out. Alternatively, you could convert this into 2's, and you can see that we will get 8 out in total. Let's keep going. 5 square root 5. And then this will be total of 4 square root 4, or as we just said earlier, that it will be a grand total of 8 on the outside. And that's why the answer was B. Question 42. What is the value of the positive real number x such that the log base x of 125 is equal to -2? So this is a classic log rules, where if you want to do the anti-log of it, you use the power on both sides. So if I do x to the log base of x of 1 over 25, and then I have to do the same to the other side, the anti-log and the log will cancel. So I'm left with 1 over 25 is equal to x to the -2 power. From here, I can raise both sides to the -1/2, -1/2, and that will give me 25 to the 1/2 is equal to x. And you may recall from the previous problem, question 41, that the square root of 20, this 2 means it's the square root of 25, which is why x is equal to 5. Answer is F. Question number 43. The points -4, -5, 0, -3, and 6, 0 lie on a line in the standard xy coordinate plane. Which of the following points also lies in that line? So one attempt would be to draw a quick graph, and we have 0, -3 right here, and then we have 6, 0 right here, and then we have -4, -5 approximately here. And so going through the choices, though, I can't really cross off any of these answer choices. So although it's a good attempt, I think we need to make a linear model. So one thing I noticed, though, is that the slope of these two lines is it goes over 6 up 3. So it means the slope is equal to half. And because they gave us the y-intercept, that means we already know b is -3. So let's write our equation, y equals half x minus 3. Looking at the answer choices, we could plug them each in, but because all of the y values are integers, I'm going to look for numbers that are divisible by 2 first. And the first one and the only one that sticks out is 4. So let's check that one first. -1 is equal to half times 4 minus 3. And that is -1 is equal to 2 minus 3, which indeed is true. So D is our correct answer. Question number 44. Raya and Sampath start running laps from the same starting line at the same time in the same direction on a certain indoor track. Raya completes one lap in 16 seconds, and Sampath completes the same lap in 28 seconds. So that tells me the rate for Raya is 1 every 16, and the rate for Sampath is 1 out of 28. Okay? Both continue running at the same respective rates in the same direction for 10 minutes. What is the fewest number of seconds after starting that Ryan and Sampath will again be in the same starting line at the same time? So this is like the repeating patterns we've run into before. We have to find out where they overlap. The easiest way to do this is doing the LCM of 16 and 28. So we prime factorize each of the numbers. So it's 2 to the 4th for 16, and 28 is 2 squared times 7. And like we've done before, we take the greatest number of prime factors. So we're going to take all of the 2's here, cross off these 2, and take all of the 7's. Next, we multiply them together. So 2 to the 4th times 7 is equal to 112 seconds, which is answer choice G. Alternatively, though, you could write out a table. So we're going to do Raya and Sampath. And so it's 0, they're at the same spot. And then Sampath goes every 28 seconds. So 28, 56, another 28 there would make it, I think, 84. And another 28 to that would be 112. And for Raya, it's every 16 seconds. So 16, 32, 48, add another 16, we get 64. So again, Raya's going much faster. I'm doing a lot more laps than Sampath, but I think eventually we'll get to 112. So add another 16, we get 80, 96, and once again we get 112. So we can see that that is the first number where they both overlap again. Question number 45. We're almost done. The CEO of Math Kings Enterprises estimates that the company sets a price of C cents for each unit of their new product, then the weekly profit for the selling of the product will be modeled by this equation, where C is between 0 and 400. According to this model, for which of the defined values of C will the weekly profit be the largest? So we could graph this equation on our graphing calculator, but since I recognize it as a quadratic, I can use the vertex formula to quickly get the vertex. So the vertex of a quadratic is using negative b over 2a. And so in this case, b is equal to 1600 since it's attached to the linear term, and a is -4 because it's attached to the quadratic term. So let's plug it in. -1600 divided by 2 times -4. 1600 divided by 8 is going to give me 200. Now this is our x value of the vertex. And we need to double check to see if we're finding the actual x value when the maximum occurs, or if we need to look for the maximum value. So reading the question again, it says which of the following values of C will give the weekly profit to be the largest. So we are looking for the x value, and that provides us, the answer is D. Question number 46. Given consecutive positive integers a, b, c, and d, such that a is less than b, less than c, less than d, which of the following expressions has the greatest value? So for most students, the easiest way to approach this question is to make up numbers. So we can pretend that A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4. These are positive, they're consecutive, and we can then check each one. So for F, that would be 1 over 2. And then for B, that is 2 over 3. So I know 2/3 is bigger than a half, so I'm going to cross off F. Looking at CD, that's 3/4 or 0.75. That's bigger than 2/3, so I can cross off G. And then J and K look more complicated. So that's going to be 3 over 5, which is 0.6. So that's still smaller than H. And then K would be B plus C, which is 5 over 7. So you may not know what that decimal is. So you can use your calculator and check, but it is indeed less than H. So that is why the correct answer is H. If you want a much longer approach, there is one. So algebraically, we could say that A is A, B is A plus 1, C is A plus 2, and D is A plus 3. So as we go through our choices of F, G, H, J, and K, we then get A over A plus 1, A plus 1 over A plus 2, A plus 2 over A plus 3, and J is going to be a total of 2A plus 1 over 2A plus 3, and K would be 2A plus 3 over 2A plus 5. After doing some long division, you would get the following answers. 1 minus 1 over A plus 1, 1 minus 1 over A plus 2, 1 minus A over plus 3. Here we get 1 minus 1 over A plus 3 halves. And lastly, we get 1 minus 1 over A plus 5 halves. Sorry, I'll fix that a little bit for you. There we go. 1 over A plus 5 halves. And we can see here that this will still be the biggest value, even algebraically. So the faster option is probably plugging in numbers, and that's what the ACT expected you to do, but sometimes you can still prove things algebraically. Question number 47. The ratio of the perimeters of two squares is 2 to 3. If the area of the larger square is 324, what is the length of the side of the smaller square? There are a couple ways of approaching this, but one that I would like to recommend you remember is the ratio rules box. So if you're given side, perimeter, area, and volume, it follows these rules where side is A to B, then the perimeter will also be A to B, and the area would be A squared to B squared, and volume is A cubed to B cubed. Now, we don't need to use volume in this case, but let's go use the perimeter. So for the perimeter, it's 2 to 3. So that means the area would have to follow the ratio of 4 to 9. Now they told us that the larger square is 324. So how can we use that to help us? Well, we can use this to set up an expression. 4 over 9 is equal to x over 324. And this will give us the area of this smaller square, which is 144. From there, we can get the length of the smaller square by square rooting it. So then the length would be equal to 12. So instead of that, we could have gone a different approach. We could have said, well, the square has an area of 324, the big one. And so then that means it has a length of 18. We could then use our side ratio to solve for the smaller side. So that would be 2 over 3 is equal to the length that we're solving for over 18. And from here, we get the same answer, 12. So 2 different ways of approaching it, but they still leads you to the answer A. Question number 48. What is the set of all integer solutions for the inequality -1 is less than or equal to x minus root 5 less than 4? So the first thing I'm going to do is add root 5 to both sides of the inequalities. So it'd be -1 plus root 5 is less than or equal to x, and that's less than 4 plus root 5 on the right-hand side. Using my calculator, I can make these into decimals, and I get 1.23 and 6.23. So I want only integers, so that means that the next integer after 1.23 is 2, so it draws my attention to G or H, and I can go all the way up to 6. That's less than 6.23, so I would like to have answer G be my final answer. Question 49. Wind blowing against a flat surface exerts a maximum force equal to Ksv squared, where S is the area of the surface, V is the wind's velocity, K is a constant. If a 40-mile-per-hour wind, so that sounds like one of our V's, can exert a maximum force of 50 pounds on a 1 square foot surface. So we have all three. We have force, we have speed, and we have area, so we can solve for K. What is the maximum force in pounds that an 80-mile-per-hour wind can exert on a 2 square foot surface? So there are two approaches here. We can solve for K, then plug it into our equation to solve for F, or we can make our own equation where we use K as the common connector. So what would that look like? Well, it would be force 1 over SV squared is equal to K, and then that would equal force 2, and again, the surface area the second time, and the V of the second one. So there should be a 1 here and 1 here. The benefit of this is we don't have to solve for K, and we can go straight to getting the answer. So that's what I'm going to do. The initial force was 50, and the initial area was 1 square foot. So that's going to be 1 on here, and the initial speed is 40 miles per hour squared. The force here, we don't know. That's what we're trying to find. The new area is 2 square feet, and the new speed is 80 miles per hour squared. So we're going to solve for F2 by multiplying the 2 times 80 squared over here. But 2 times 80 squared times 50 over 40 squared. And we could do this in our head. 80 divided by 40 is 2, but since there's 2 of them, it would be 2 times 2. So that's going to equal 2 times 2 times 2 times 50, or 8 times 50, which is 400. D is our answer. Question number 50. Roger will pour concrete to make a sidewalk with the dimensions in feet shown in the figure below. He will pour the concrete to a depth of 4 inches. So they're italicizing that word, so I'm going to watch out for a unit change here. 1 bag of concrete makes 0.6 cubic feet of concrete. So that means there was a unit change. So we're probably going to have to change these 4 inches into feet. What is the least number of bags of concrete that we need to make a sidewalk? So in order to get the volume here, I need to find the area of the base, and I'm going to times it by the depth. Looking at this, I'm going to break it up into 2 rectangles. So this is going to be an area of 40, and then this is going to be an area of 64. So the volume is going to be 104, but then we have to times it by the number of the depth in terms of feet. So it's going to be 4 inches divided by 12 to get into feet. So my volume is going to be 104 over 3. So that's the volume. We need to find out how many cubic feet of concrete that needs. So we're going to set this equal to the number of bags times 0.6. And using my calculator, I got N to be the decimal answer, 57.78. Now, previously, we said that we sometimes round down, sometimes round up. Because we need at least these number of bags to finish the whole sidewalk, we're going to have to round up to 58 to finish it. And that's why the answer is J. Question number 51. The radius of OA in the circle below is perpendicular, which means it forms a right angle. The circle intersects OP at B, which we can see right there. And that is also another radius, so I might want to label that. The length of AP is 12, which we have right here. And the measure of APO is 20 degrees, so I might be using trigonometry to solve this problem. Which is the finest length of BP? Well, there's no direct way to solve for BP, but if I find the whole length of OP, I can then subtract the radius to get BP. So let's write that down. OP minus the radius is equal to BP. I don't have the radius yet, though, but I can find it by calculating AO and using 12. So, because it's opposite of our adjacent, I'm going to use tangent. So tan of 20 degrees is equal to the radius over 12. Using my calculator, I get the radius to be equal to 4.368. Well, now we need to find OP. OP will be using the adjacent side and the hypotenuse, so that's going to be using cosine. So OP is our hypotenuse, so I will need to erase this a little bit first. So cosine of 20 degrees is equal to the adjacent side 12 over OP. Using my calculator, I get OP is equal to 12.7. Now it's just a simple thing of plugging it into our initial equation. 12.77 minus the radius of 4.368 is equal to BP. And I can see that's going to be equal to about 8, which is why the answer was E. Question number 52. The average of 10 test scores is X. When the highest score and the lowest score are removed from the 10 scores, the average now becomes Y. Which of the following is the expression for the average of the highest score and the lowest score? So whenever a problem gives you both the number of items and the average, you are going to find the sum. So I'm going to say that the original sum is equal to 10 times X, because we had an average of 10 test scores and the average of 10 test scores was X. Now the new sum is equal to the original sum minus the highest and the lowest. So that means if we take 10x and we minus the highest score and the lowest score, that will become our new average. Well, the new sum of this would also equal 8 times y because we took away 2 test scores. So I'm going to write that this is equal to 8y. Going from here, there's no way I can get a numerical answer, but that's not what I'm solving for. I'm solving for the average of the highest and lowest scores. So I really want h plus l over 2. And looking at this, I can move these two over to the other side. So 10x minus 8y is equal to h plus l. And that's pretty good. That looks pretty good like f, but because we want the average, we're going to divide them both sides by 2. And that is our final answer, or h. Question number 53. Which of the following is a solution set of 27 to the n squared equals to 9 to the 5n minus 4? Well, one thing you could definitely have done is just plug in some of these answers and see if they're true or not. For example, if I plug in 1 real quickly, I get 27 to the 1 is equal to 9 to the 5 minus 4, which is 1. And I can see that that's not true. However, if you want to solve it algebraically, you need to make both 27 and 9 into a common base, and that is base 3. So 27 is 3 cubed, so I'm going to write 3 cubed, and then raise it to the n squared. 9 is 3 squared. So that's 5n minus 4. I'm going to multiply these exponents because they're power raised by power. So I get 3 to the 3n squared is equal to 3 to the 10n minus 8. Don't forget to distribute this to both terms. Now that the bases are the same, we can set the exponents equal to each other. And that is your classic quadratic. So we get 3n squared minus 10n plus 8 is equal to 0. And so then we have to think of two numbers that multiply to give us 8, but then somehow we get a sum of 10. So this might take you a couple tries, but I found that 4 and 2 work pretty well. But it depends on where you put the 4. So if we put the 4 right here, we get 12 and 2n. So that's almost correct. But if I did that, it would be negative 8. So it's not quite the answer we want, even though that would match up with C. Instead, we want to switch the position of the 4 and the 2. And now when I do this, I get 3n times 2, which is 6n, 4n. So it could be a total of 10n when we add them together. Let's solve them. 3n minus 4 is equal to 0. N is equal to 4/3. And then this is clearly n equals 2. So that's why the answer was E. But again, you have a graphing calculator. You can take these answers and plug them in, and that may have been faster for you. Question number 54. Each face of two cubes with faces numbered from 1 through 6 has a 1/6 chance of landing up with two cubes are tossed. This is basically a normal die that you might play with your friends. What is the probability that the sum of the number of faces landed will be less than 6? Well, I know that for the total number of possibilities, there are 6 sides on one cube and 6 sides on another cube, so the total number of possibilities is 36. However, in order to find the sum of them, I might want to draw a table of values. So I'm going to do that first. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then because the other die is the same, we're going to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can fill out the entire table, but we only need to find the ones that are less than 6. So I'm going to focus on the smaller numbers. So that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5. If I go to here, I'll get 6, which is too much. Going the other way, it's 3, 4, 5, and that would be 6, so it's too much. This would be 4, 5, this is 5. So these are all the only possibilities where it will be less than 6. So when we count them all up, we get a total of 10. And since we said there are 36 total possibilities, we divide by 36, and that gives us 5/18, which is why G is the correct answer. Question number 55. At 2 p.m., Louisa leaves Kansas City in her car traveling east on the I-70 towards St. Louis at an average speed of 68 miles per hour. At precisely the same time, Antonio leaves St. Louis in his car traveling west on the I-70 towards Kansas City at the average speed of 57 miles per hour. So let's put these on a map. So we have Kansas City over here. We got St. Louis over here. I think in reality, St. Louis is a little bit south of Kansas City, but based on the direction, we're going to assume that they're directly east of each other. The total distance between these two cities is 240 miles per hour. 240 miles. So Kansas City, as Louisa is leaving Kansas City at 68 miles per hour. So that's 68 times t. That'll be the distance that she travels. And Antonio is driving the opposite direction at a speed of 57 miles per hour. So that's 57 times t. And they're left at the same time, so these t's are the equal. So the total distance that they will travel in total, especially when they pass each other on the I-70, will be equal to 240. So that's why I'm going to write this equation. 68t plus 57t is equal to 240. And when we add them together and solve for t, we get t is equal to 1.92 hours. Well, they left at 2 p.m., so it should be pretty close to 4 p.m. But there are two answers that are pretty close to 4 p.m. So what we need to do is convert the 0.92 hours into minutes. 0.92 times 60 is going to be equal to 55 and some change. So that is why the answer was D, 3 hours and 3:55 p.m. versus 3:53 p.m. And if you say that 10 times fast, you'll probably get just as tongue-tied as I did. Question number 56. There are 10 points in a plane, and no 3 of the points are collinear, meaning that there's no 3 points are on the same line. These 10 points taken 2 points at a time determine how many distinct lines. So the key thing is distinct here. So because it takes 2 points to make a line and I have 10 points to select from, I'm actually going to use combinations here to figure out my answer. So 10 points to select from, and I want 2 points to make a line. If I was going to make a triangle, I would do 3 points. But we only need a line, so it's 2 points. That's going to be 10 factorial over 10 minus 2 factorial times 2 factorial, which is going to be 10 times 9 over 2, which is 45. And that's why the answer is J. Another way of going about this question is to draw a decagon because it's 10 points in a plane. And then you have to just count how many lines you draw as you go through it. So this is the much faster approach, but you could draw it out if you would like. Question number 57. The expression n exclamation point, otherwise known as n factorial, is defined as the product of all positive integers up to and including n, where n is a positive integer. For example, 4 factorial is going to be 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, or you can go 1 times 2 times 3 times 4. But you don't go to 0 because it will no longer be positive, and we stop at the number that we're given. Whenever n is a positive integer, which we're defining is equivalent to this term. So this is a pretty popular topic in pre-calculus and calculus BC. The way we approach it is we can do it algebraically. So n factorial is the same thing as n times n minus 1 times n minus 2, all the way down to 3 times 2 times 1. So in this case, though, we have n plus 1 factorial. So that would be n plus 1 factorial is equal to n plus 1 times n factorial. And I'm stopping there because I already have an n factorial on the bottom. And 6 factorial is going to be 6 times 5 times 3 factorial. So let's break that down. I'm going to do n plus 1 times n factorial over n factorial. And then the 6 turns into 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 factorial over 3 factorial. So this cancels, and this cancels, and we're left with 6 times 4 times 6 times 5 times 4 times n plus 1. And that gives us 120 times n plus 1, which is why the answer was A. Question 58. Which of the following must be true, key thing there, must be true for each set of 4 consecutive positive integers? So that is where it gets a little tricky depending on what numbers you use for this problem. For example, if you started with the easiest consecutive positive integers, 1, 2, 3, 4, we will find that all of them are true. Let's go through it. At least one of the 4 integers is prime. Well, yeah, here we have 2, so that means Roman number 1 is true. At least 2 of the 4 integers have a common prime factor. Well, that's at least 2 of the 4 integers have a common prime factor. Yeah, so 2 is a factor of 2, and 4 has a factor of 2. So that would also be true. And 3, at least one of the 4 integers is a factor of at least one of the 3 other integers. So 2 is a factor of 4, 1 is a factor of 4, so that's all true. So that's why the answer K might have been tempting for you. If you, though, expand your math all the way up to, think, 24, so let's look at 24, 25, 26, and 27. Here, we do not have any prime numbers. So Roman number 1 does not have to be true. It could be true. In a lot of cases, it will be true, but not always true. 2, at least 2 of the 4 integers have a common prime factor. Well, 24 has 2, 26 has 2, so they do share a common prime factor. So that means Roman numeral 2 is still true. And 3, at least one of the 4 integers is a factor of at least one of the other integers. 24 does not go into any of the numbers, neither is 25, neither is 26, neither is 27. So the answer is indeed only G, and you may have just gotten tricked up on that one depending what numbers you picked. Question number 59. When x plus 1 to the 4th power is expanded and like terms are combined, what is the coefficient of the x squared term? So one way we could approach this is expanding out all of the terms. So let's try that. I'm first going to break this down into x plus 1 squared times x plus 1 squared. And you remember these are perfect square trinomials, and if you have the formula memorized, you can quickly expand these out at least. So that's x squared plus 2x plus 1, x squared plus 2x plus 1. Now, whenever I'm doing trinomials times trinomials, I like to make a table, so that way I make sure I get every term. So it's x squared, 2x, and 1, x squared, 2x, and 1. And we have that, perfect. Now we're only looking for x squared. So although we could fill in every box, we only need to fill in the ones that have an x squared in it. So there's an x squared here, there's an x squared here, and there's an x squared here. So that gives me a total of 6x squared. And that's why the answer is E. However, a much faster approach would be use Pascal's triangle, which you may recall is a way to multiply out binomial expansion. So we're going all the way up to a power of 4, so that means I need to go to when the second term is 4. And then this would be 1x to the fourth, this would be 4x cubed, 6x squared, 4x, and then plus 1. So this was a very quick way of getting our answer, but you still have to know Pascal's triangle. So I encourage you to look it up. It's pretty popular for expanding polynomials in your pre-calc and calculus class. Question number 60. At this point, you finally made it to the last question of the ACT test, and you might have been burned out by the previous ones. Look at this question. It's very wordy, but it's actually pretty easy. Let's go through it. What we're looking for is the length of the guy wire in feet, and everything else is explained in the diagram below. And they're giving us some hints telling us to use either law of sines or law of cosines, which you are encouraged to remember because they don't always get the formula out. So I'm looking for this side. And in order to use law of cosines, I would need to know this angle right here. Although it's not obvious at first, this is a right angle, and because this is a right triangle, then 20 plus 90 plus this angle in here have to add up to 180. So that tells me that this angle inside is 70. Using our supplementary angle rules, then the angle C right here would be 180 minus 70, or 110 degrees. And this makes it a perfect candidate for law of cosines. So law of cosines is c squared a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of the angle between the two sides. So the guy wires are c, so that would be 25 squared plus 60 squared minus 2 times 25 times 60 cosine of the angle 110. Now, looking at the answers is maybe helpful to you because you can see right away that we don't actually have to mathematically solve this. We just have to look at the formula. And looking at them, these look pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. The only difference is the angle here. And so because I want cosine 110 and minus, that's why the answer was K. And congratulations, you're now done with the AC Math test.